Hello and welcome to Hazard and Hope. I'm Ed, and in this episode of Our Flood Resilient Home, we're heading to the village of Reeth in North Yorkshire to meet Ian and hear about how flooding's affected his home and the variety of different ways in which him and his family have adapted the property to make it more flood resilient. So here we go. This episode of Hazard and Hope is sponsored by Yorkshire Flood Resilience.
We've lived here since 1993, so it's 27 years. And the Arkle Beck runs along the side of the property. The river has risen quite high at times, but no, we've never been near flooding. It was July the 30th, and there was heavy rain for about 4 hours. And I think there's 155 millimetres of rain recorded as falling in that period of time. The river took what it could, but there's also water coming off the land. We're in a valley, we're in the Akengarthdale valley, and the water came down the hill on both sides, and eventually the river rose so high that it came across the fields behind the property. And it came around the houses that are to the north side of this one, swept around there, and then came in through the doors and windows at the back, about a metre of water at the back door. So it was squirting in through the sides of the door. And then as pressure built up and it went round the front of the house, it came in through every hole it could come through. We'd been down in Cornwall for 3 days. We were going camping. We got a phone call from one of our sons to say, I think you need to come home. We came into the village and there were cars washed up and, one on top of another, walls down, people with stuff outside, emergency vehicles. It's one of those scenes that you see on television and you can't imagine what it feels like until you experience it yourself. The following day there were armies of volunteers from Richmond, from Reeth, from up further up the dale, and they just came with buckets and just helped everybody.
Were you straight into some temporary accommodation, or what was the sort of next step?
We moved to a property in Easby, which was a holiday let, and we had a month down there, and then we moved 8 more times, mainly around this area. We wanted to be as close as we could.
What was the point at which you thought, right, we're going to renovate this and put it back to be more resilient?
First, we were just keen to get the place dry, and whatever work needed to be done, just get it done. But I think when we had time to just reflect, we just started to think, well, maybe we should be doing more about preventing such damage. Because we had no idea what the damage was until people started to pull things off the walls and you saw what had happened. Every room in the down floor, all 6 rooms were affected. Everything had been swamped, and it's not clean water. It's not clean river water. It's silt. It's possibly farm waste. All sorts. That's the timeline of all the sort of major events since the flood. That's the period of the first lockdown. The reinstatement began officially on the 25th of August this year, which is here, and then it's paused at the moment. It's over a year before reinstatement began. You might think, well, what have you been doing for a year and a half? But there's so much stuff.
Yeah, but also I suppose to think that a flood that lasted a number of hours has affected you for a year and a half now.
Yeah, 66 weeks.
Did you have an impact, I suppose, on your health and well-being for the family? I mean, it must have been incredibly disruptive.
Yeah, I think there were moments of upset, Until it happens, you don't know how you're going to feel and the effect it has on you. It's like a wave that comes over you. I suppose it's a bit like delayed shock. We weren't in pieces, really. You're just constantly going over things. One of the things is, why did it happen to us? But I think long term, we're getting fed up of it now. We're getting a bit. I think there's a bit more anger, if you like. we want things to happen, and things are not happening, and that's a different feeling. But yeah, after it first happens, you what can you do? You have to accept it's happened. You can't try and wish it hadn't, and then you've got to get on.
Yeah, in terms of the recovery process, it sounds like you've extended it slightly because you've chosen to do extra and additional things. And I suppose, was there the option to just put things back as they were and then move back in quite quickly and easily?
Yeah, I think with most insurance companies, they are there to put you back to where you were. There is no betterment. Are you aware of?
Yeah, there is betterment coming in actually. So
is
it's
there?
one of the things that the insurers are now starting to move towards with the work that Reeth's doing, and they are starting to now look at ways to build back better and actually add in some betterment. So it's coming through, and
Right.
there is going to be opportunity for people to not just put back that big thick carpet that you used to have there and find a way to improve things.
Yeah.
And there's a code of practice for property flood resilience which kind of sets out lots of the different stages that we need to go through in
Right.
designing and developing and fitting and installing and maintaining flood resilient strategies.
Yeah.
But I think for a long time there hasn't been betterment, and we did just used to pop things back exactly as they were because that's the way that things were.
That option it was certainly there, but we decided that if we did that, then we'd just sort of open ourselves to the same issues and problems and risk that we were open to before. So we decided no, we would do things differently and take the opportunity now, because I mean, you can, as you look around, we're back to basically, that initial build, from 200 years ago. So we want to try and improve things, and we should be able to make a property that is more resilient to this type of event happening again.
So for the property itself, in terms of resistance measures and ways to keep the water out, what are you planning there?
Flood barriers primarily, although the flood barriers will be on the back of the house. There was a bathroom, a downstairs bathroom. That's not going to be there anymore. We're moving that upstairs. So all the openings, the outlets for the toilet, the shower, the bath, those are going to be closed off because flood water came up through all those during the flood. So that will not be a way for water to come in. We have had a surveyor in to look at the barriers, who specifically works on barriers, and he's the person who's told us what we should put in and what it'll cost. Okay, fantastic. And that's been one of the key sort of guiding bits of advice you've had to help inform you of how deep it might be, or what different measures you should put in for your house type and for your context. Yeah, he's told us what height barriers to go for at which door and the window at the back. Fantastic. And then electrics wise, are you sort of changing the wiring in a particular way? Yeah, I think all the wiring's, and it's going to come down the walls rather than through the skirting and up. But one of the main things that for this house is that all the floors will be concreted. So we're taking the opportunity now to do that.
And this was the kitchen?
Yeah.
And then this was where it first came in?
Yeah, through that back door. Everything that was attached to the ground and everything about a metre high was flooded. Most of this is new timber. This is the ceiling that partially collapsed, and the stud work was taken out from that side, this side and that end.
But it's also interesting to hear that when the ground floor is affected and being amended, it can have knock-on effects to other spaces and other parts of the home.
It's a long time since it happened. You can sort of reflect on what you've done and what you felt, and it's quite difficult to remember really what it was like, what we felt like, but things like this are useful, talking to them. You've got to talk to people. Always important to talk to people. There's a big thing about mental health at the moment, people are not talking about it. Well, I don't think mentally, hopefully we're not too badly off, but it does help to talk. The river has actually been dredged. They put a machine in, a big machine with a bucket. You can see the pile of stones all the way up the river, and they took about 2 metres out of the river. But eventually that will all get washed back in again.
Yes.
So it's a long-term but temporary fix. And they've dredged the river at the other side of the bridge because there's a great big island in the middle of the river with trees, and that's gone. So all those things help, but the trouble is they possibly have an impact further downstream. So what we do to help ourselves can make things worse for other people.
I suppose having been through a flood and having had those experiences, what tips or what knowledge would you want to share with somebody who might also have gone through this? Because I think many people viewing this might not have lived through a flood.
Yeah,
might not.
Well, we haven't. Yeah, I think be appropriate for your property. We've got to be really careful how we treat this house, because you can, as you've said in your book and others have said, you can do more damage long term by refitting the wrong stuff. You talked about materials and the amount of energy that goes into finding, sourcing, installing. You could think you've put some really good stuff in, and the walls don't breathe. So you end up with damp patches where you never had damp before. There's no flood, it's just your walls are not doing what they're supposed to do. So we've got to be careful. Treat your house as it should be treated. The second thing is, my wife started writing down on the first day that we were back just a few things that came into our minds. And that has developed into 3 logbooks. We write in every day what has happened. Even if nothing's happened, we just put a date in, say, put a line through it. You need to be able to go back and look at what has happened, who you've spoken to, what you said, but you do need some record keeping, because we're into week 65. If you said what happened, well, I had to go and look at that timeline to tell you when the reinstatement started. Some people can hold things in their head, but I can't remember what happened 40 weeks ago, 50 weeks ago. So get yourself organised, and then accept as much help as you can. People will do amazing things, just let them help. Maybe another tip is make sure you're insured, but you're insured for flood, because I know some properties are not insured for flood. So do make sure that you know what's on your insurance policy.
How many months are you expecting things now? If works can continue and things, are you thinking kind of spring, or is it
3 months?
Sooner?
I would think. Yeah, I would think so. But the coronavirus, the second lockdown, might have an impact. The weather, we're coming into the winter months. I don't know, but 3 would be great.
So how many months have you been back in?
About 2.5 months.
How's it felt waking back up in the house?
Odd. If you've ever been away from your own home for a long time, and you go back, and we're going back to something that isn't like what we left. It's changed because we've asked for it to be changed. We've made that decision. I don't know how to describe it. It's not our house yet.
Yes. Yeah.
It is, but it's different. We're 2 years and 3 weeks into it since the flood.
Yeah.
We've got maybe another 4 months to go.
Yeah.
So we're looking at maybe 2.5 years in total.
Yeah. How many months do you think you've had in a state where you weren't really able to move forward?
7.
7. Yeah.
7 months. It's quite a chunk.
Yeah, it really is. It looks as if you've used the process of recovery as an opportunity to actually improve areas that you'd wanted to, even the energy efficiency of the home. It looks like that's been a kind of driving element within the whole recovery process.
We know that climate change is a big issue, and it's getting worse. It's got worse certainly in my lifetime. And we had to do something. We had to do our bit. All right, we've suffered, if you like, in terms of we've been flooded. And it's one of those things that happens to other people, not to yourself. And when things like that happen to you as a person, you do see things differently. And we thought, yeah, let's do our bit. It might be just one tiny little change in this country, but if we do it and other people do it, then there's a chain reaction, and hopefully it will take off. And not that we're influential, but the fact that we're doing it is we're doing our bit. We felt more comfortable about that. So we got rid of oil as our primary source of heating. We're still using electricity, but hopefully get it from a green, renewable supply. And we've made it the house so that we use less energy anyway. But that's happened because of the flood. We've used that as an opportunity to make changes that are hopefully better for the environment, better for us, better for the house.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, you're looking potentially at microhydro, thinking about what you could do with the river.
Yeah, microhydro, and as we talk now, the sun's shining and this is nearly south facing, it's just slightly east of south. We need solar panels on the roof.
Yeah.
You know, we could be off grid.
Fantastic, yeah. Which measures have you, looking through the property, have you put in place in terms of flood resilience?
All the wiring was taken out, so it's a total rewire. And everything now goes up from a consumer unit that's about just under 6 foot above the floor, up through the wall, across the ceilings and back down the walls to all the points that need it. So there's nothing travelling at floor level or even up to about 300 millimetres. Walls that were not insulated are now insulated, and floors that were not insulated are now insulated.
And you've gone for closed cell insulation so that it's less impacted by the flood water if it comes in. If you're drawing a line around the house in terms of where you're protected, it kind of goes from actually the walls of the building, then the walls of the garden, and then back round.
Yeah.
So you've got perimeter protection as well as property level protection. Yeah. And if you needed in the future, you could add in another layer on that back end of the building, couldn't you? So this is really the big one, the key one.
Yeah.
And you probably keep this in, during the wetter months, during the wetter times.
Yeah.
And as I say, you can keep just take off the upper bit if you need. You can straddle over it where need be, but also maybe if you're heading away on holiday, set it up.
Oh yeah.
Put it in place.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, just a bit of peace of mind to know that things are protected.
And we can open the door, top half if we need to.
Yeah.
In case of flood, we can get out if we need to. That was an entry point. The door's been put in and it's been pointed in. And that's the air supply for the wood burner. Before we used to have an air grate here.
Yeah.
So there is that rectangular section pipework goes into the wall, down and across to the underside of the fire. So we've got an air supply for the wood burner.
And have you got something to block that up if you needed to?
I have. I've got a cast brass piece that came off there.
Have you had any more warnings? Have you had any more kind of...
Oh, we've had warnings, yeah. But no, we've not had any big events really, fortunately.
Yeah.
On this right-hand side, it was about that height was the water.
Yeah.
So that one of the key things was to get that air source unit high enough out the way of the river. So whereas the boiler got flooded, that shouldn't get flooded. Because if the river gets that high, I think it'll take some of the buildings with it as well.
At this point in the project, have you got a sense of the costs so far, costs to date?
I understand the whole reinstatement of the sort of fabric of the building is about 160,000, and the heating system, better doors, 20,000 possibly.
And the barriers themselves, how much did they come in at, do you know?
£3,500. That's including installation. Yeah, I think the barriers are the one big thing that I'm really pleased about, because it's only 2 weeks ago since they went in, and I had this fear that we would be builders and other people would be working on the reinstatement, and then a month before we moved in, we'd get another flood and it would start again. So one of the big comforts, if you like, is the fact that those barriers are in. Yeah, you don't want to be laid in bed at night listening to the rain, and you're looking at the chart on the environment website that's showing that your river is rising. You're going to be laid there thinking, well, we've done what we can, we should be better off than we were before.
It's really kind of Ian to have shown us around and to have shared his experiences with us. On 2 occasions now, and we've kept in touch throughout the recovery process and throughout the pandemic, and I think that they've shown incredible gumption to just keep going, keep pushing on through, and actually there's a lot of positives we can take from this. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, because in repairing their 250 plus year old property, they've found a way through the recovery process and reinstatement process to actually make it more energy efficient. And I think it's something that we should be thinking about. When you're back to the bare bones, bare structure of the property, we should be rebuilding and repairing our properties to not just be flood resilient, but also to be low energy, efficient, healthy homes. That's a real positive to take and lesson to learn from what he and his family have been through. We have also got a 3D tour of the space, which is available to view at hazardandhope.com. And with this model, you can click to move around it. And there's a variety of different touch points that you can interact with to find out more information about the different types of property flood resilience measures that Ian's adapted to his home. So thanks very much for listening, and if you'd like to keep updated on future episodes, then please subscribe below, hit the bell for notifications, and we look forward to seeing you soon.